Hi, I'm Angie. I'm an indie author, and today we're going to talk about first drafts. So, the first draft process and I.
Have beef.
Now, it's funny that the beginning of this process is what I find the worst of writing, but it really is because, one, the imposter syndrome kicks in when I start a new project, and I'm like, what if this story isn't as good as I imagine it to be? I start comparing my first draft to traditionally published authors' sixth, seventh draft, whatever their final version may be. And I really start doubting my skill and getting really hard on myself about what a first draft should look like. Now, I'm the biggest proponent, and I scream this from the rooftops to other people as loud as I can, but for some reason my brain doesn't internalize it. But basically, we all know, we should know, that first drafts are really for like word vomiting the story onto the page, just getting something there. And then your next edits are for refining the story, making it readable, making it comprehensive and enjoyable. But I have this shitty, weird thing where I need my first drafts to be like perfectly comprehensible and just full of all the right plot twists and character development. And I basically just don't cut myself any slack. So, needless to say, the first draft process is very daunting and.
Full of suffering.
But luckily, over the past like 3-ish years, I've really refined my first draft process and my writing process in general, where I know how to alleviate all these things that come up and making just the whole journey as painless and inspirational as possible. So today we're going to get into my process, what it is, how I approach first drafts, and what my current first draft looks like. Now, sitting down is the hardest part of my first draft process. Literally getting my ass in front of my laptop and start typing on my keyboard. That is the most difficult part of it. And I've realized this over the past few years. It's just starting is the hard part with a lot of things in life. And so I have kind of tried different approaches to alleviate this in the past. Last year, when I was working on the first draft for Into Darkness, book 2 in my fantasy series, I had set this crazy goal over like Christmas, and I was like, I'm writing, what did I even, it was like, I'm writing 2,000 words every single day, no breaks. I'm starting and I'm not stopping until the day I finish the first draft. And I did it. I think I went like 20 something days straight until I finished it because I'd already had some work done previously. And I worked through the worst Christmas head cold. Like, I was literally sitting in the chair over there, just like massive migraine, bundled up, sniffling, typing away this manuscript. And you know what? I did it. I suffered.
Greatly.
But I did it. And so this year, winter is kind of like my first draft writing season. And I'm working on book 3 in my fantasy series. And I was like, Angie, you can't, like, do the 2,000 words a day thing again. Like, that was too much. Let's scale it back and make it more reasonable. So I decided January 1st, I started writing 30 minutes every single day. Word count doesn't matter. Of course, I want to hit a certain word count, but it doesn't matter. I set my timer, 30 minutes goes off. I can walk away from my laptop if need be. But I realized after the first few days that I kept writing after 30 minutes. Sometimes I wrote for 2 hours. Sometimes I had a 30-minute session, and then 4 hours later I came back to my laptop and started writing again. It was just getting over that hump of starting, getting into a flow, and realizing, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. I've already hit my goal for the day. It's not stressful. I can just keep writing. And it's working so well. So it's January 15th. I've been doing this for 15 days straight. No missed days, which for me personally, I really struggle with doing things every single day. So yeah, it's just a small little goal you set that you know that's achievable. 30 minutes a day. Even if I just sit in front of my laptop and write the most garbage words, it still counts. But of course I'm not going to try to do that. So it's like just little attainable goals is what I suggest if you struggle in this process like I do. Just give yourself somewhere to start. And then you'll just take it so much further than you ever thought. Aside from setting like a really attainable goal during the first draft process, whether it's writing every single day, I also have another goal that's like I have to finish 2 chapters per week. Whatever it may be for you, just find something that works, that's attainable, that doesn't make you feel like it's this huge burden on you every single day or week. and make that your goal, and then get a routine. This can be you write a certain time of the day. I personally just write whenever I feel inspired or when I force myself to sit down at my laptop. That's when I write. But I always have a playlist going. I build a playlist for every single project I work on. I have some mood music going in the background. I sit down in a really comfy chair, usually with a heating pad, sometimes a cup of tea, and just really set the tone and the environment for having a good writing session. And I think it helps. Y'all, editing Angie coming at you after the video was filmed because I forgot to mention like the most critical part of my first draft process. And that is you are not allowed to go back and start editing things. This was something that like fucked me up so bad in the beginning of writing, like before I ever completed a novel, was I would always like go back and be like, oh well, I can rewrite this better, like, oh, and it was really just a way to like one, procrastinate like writing the rest of it, and two, like just like latching onto this idea of like it needs to be perfect even more. And so it is illegal in my world, in my laptop, to go back and start editing things when you're moving on to other chapters. And that is my biggest piece of advice that will hopefully help you as much as it's helped me, because you can't go forward if you're always looking back. Now, a lot of the times after I'm done editing a chapter, like days later, maybe a week later, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I should actually have them say this, or like I should add this like plot twist or like this hint for a future plot twist into this chapter in this moment. And I will allow myself to go back and highlight a portion and make a note. I use Scrivener, and you can like leave little notes and comments on highlighted things, kind of like Google Docs. And so I'll allow myself to go back and do that, or like make a note in my phone and be like, in chapter 22 in book 3, like you need to make sure that like actually he says this and this. But I never allow myself to go back into the physical document and start rewriting things. That's a big no-no. Even though I have all these great tips and tricks and things I do to like make the first draft process easier, it's always going to be a little bit of a struggle for me just because of that like pressure of getting it right the first time, which again makes no sense because it's a first draft for a reason. I go through 6 rounds of edits after my first draft. So the first draft by no means needs to be like reader worthy. But even though I know that, I can't get over this urge to just sit in front of my laptop and get it done until it's where it needs to be. In a nutshell, my first draft process is I usually start writing, I'm dedicated for a couple weeks, I fall off or I get imposter syndrome really bad, and then I pick it up with a very strict like daily goal or weekly chapter or word count like deadline that I need to hit until I finish. All in all, with this like weird like false start and then getting super dedicated, all that timeline put together, I usually finish a first draft in like around 3 months. And again, that's with me being like super dedicated for 2 weeks, maybe taking like 2 to 3 weeks of just like flip-flopping, and then a constant like however many weeks that is left of like constant everyday dedication. I know not everyone is like this. I just am kind of like a burn the candle at both ends, like hyper focused type of person when it comes to my writing, to my detriment at times. So I just really like, it's a get in, get out again, because like first draft process like stresses me out, and I want to get into the edits and make the story better as soon as possible. Okay, so let's get into where I'm sitting now with my current work in progress. Now, like I said, this is the 3rd book in my fantasy series. The 2nd book is coming out in less than 2 weeks. I'm very excited. But so currently, I want to say I started this about around end of November. And again, I took like a really weird long extended break, and then like took some time in December where I was like writing a few times a week but like not dedicated. And then January 1st I was like, okay, we're like writing every single day until like I finish this. So currently I am at 119,000 words, which, let me do some quick math, in like novel size is about 450 pages. Now, this book is going to be very long. The one I just published, which I'll show you guys in a second, or the one that's going to be published in a couple weeks, is about 600 pages. The first book in the series, Sifting Sands, was about a little over 400. So 400, 600. This third book, let me tell y'all, I'm long-winded if you haven't figured that out through my channel. And so this is probably going to be another 600-page book. And so being at like 400 and something pages now is pretty healthy in terms of like how I'm looking at this. In terms of chapters I have left, I only have 6 chapters left to write. So I'm feeling very good about that. I'm hoping to be done in about a month. That would be great. We'll see how it goes. Some of these chapters are going to be really long. Now, I did mention that I've been writing for 30 minutes every single day for the past 15 days, over 2 weeks. And I wanted to give you guys an example of how many words I'm writing per day with that 30-minute goal. Sometimes I said I go over, sometimes I just stop at 30 minutes and call it good, depending on how I'm feeling. So I average anywhere between, I think my lowest day was just, January 3rd. I wrote 500 words. And my longest day, so that would have been one where I'd like cut it off at 30 minutes and I was like, that's enough for today. My longest day was actually today. I wrote 3,220 words. Obviously, that took me way over 30 minutes. I kind of just sat there and was just like cranking it out. I actually finished a chapter today, so that felt really good. So it varies a lot. On average, 1,500 words per day is kind of like my standard like output. Regardless if I like am forcing myself to write for 30 minutes or not, like 1,500 words is just kind of the groove I get into. Which is about, oh my gosh, I should just keep this calculator up. I want to say it's about 5 pages. Let me see. Yeah, it's about 5.6 pages. So that's where I'm at with this first draft. But to show you what I mean when I say like I'm forcing myself to write comprehensively, I know it's very common and it would make my life a lot easier if I just like left chunks in the document where I wasn't sure of things and put like big fight scene TK or like insert big argument TK, which if you don't know, TK is a shorthand meaning to come. It's not TC because that's very common in a lot of words, but TK you can just search or find and replace and find where that is in the document really quick. And I do use TK a lot for like very fantasy specific like names of things. Like if there's a certain facet of the gods or world building or a specific location that I'm like, I don't want to come up with a name really quickly. I want to think about it more. I'll just put like TK place, TK weapon. You know what I mean? Something random like that. But I don't really use it for like large chunks, and I don't put like come back to this and write this later, which I know is like a joke among writers of like you get to the second draft and you're like, why is there this huge gap here that I didn't write? I force myself to write it, which is why sometimes chapters take me so long to like suffer through. But I do want to read you something really quick just to give you an example, and it's fun, and I'm trying to like keep my energy high with this first draft because I'm so far through it. I'm getting to the point at the end where I'm like, again, second guessing myself, getting a little burnt out. So I want to like get excited again. So let me read a chapter that I really enjoy. And I'm not reading the whole chapter, that'd be crazy. I'll just read you like a paragraph or two. And while I'm searching, you can look at how amazing all my stickers are. I'm really proud of my sticker collection. Isn't it so cool? Anyways. Let's find a good spot. Okay, we're just going to start in a random spot. I'm not going to tell you anything. Here we go. Hopefully this is no spoilers. I don't think it should be. Okay. Her sharp gaze, though riddled with exhaustion, is far from defeated. Pale eyes hold my focus without concern, only conviction. Something about her gaze pries at me, churns my stomach, and makes shadows thrash under my skin. Those ghostly blue eyes flash in warning, silently screaming at me to yank on Mirage's reins and go. Every clenched muscle in her face tells me to leave before I'm confined to the same fate she faces now. She's worried for me. Desperately so. My throat tightens as I notice the faint bruising across her cheek, faded with time but confirmation enough to what she's endured out here. I think I've witnessed all that could threaten to break me, but when my gaze shifts lower, I'm proved wrong. My body stills. A small smudge of markings peek out from the girl's torn tunic, dashing across her dashing across her collarbone before disappearing. The faint glimpse is enough, too much. It fills my chest with a familiar ache and furrows my brow in confusion. A berserker. This girl is a berserker. Velis's strength is woven through her bones, yet she remains bound and broken. I stare at her with fury heavying my brow. Why hasn't she broken free? Why hasn't she torn these bastards limb from... Are you... There was a piece of dialogue I wasn't ready for. Aren't you a curious thing? My gaze snaps to the leader unwillingly, lips snarling underneath my scarves. His dark hair is shaved at the sides, revealing a gnarly scar at the top of his head. Dark blue eyes flicker deviously as he eats up every bit of what I offer the world, which isn't much. He tilts his head at me, grin growing a little more eager. What are you doing out here all alone, girlie? Okay, I'm gonna stop with that. So there we go. That's how my first drafts look. Again, it's comprehensive where like a reader could read it and the story would flow and make sense and there wouldn't be anything like jarring that would pull them out of the story immediately. But it's far from perfect. As I was reading that, in the back of my mind, I was like, you said gaze already. You said that word already. Like, I don't like repeating words so close to each other. Like I say, her sharp gaze, though riddled with exhaustion, is far from defeated. Pale eyes hold my focus without concern. Only conviction. Something about her gaze pries at me. I don't like that. In the rewrites, I will change that word to something else. Like, something about her focus or something like that. Just to change the word usage up. And then just like making sure the flow of the sentence structure isn't overly repeated. Like I don't say like, how am I going to explain this without sounding crazy? Like, those ghostly blue eyes flash in warning, silently screaming at me to yank on Mirage's reins and go. If I had also in the next sentence said, pale eyes hold my focus without concern. Only conviction. You know what I mean? Like the same like da 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 instead of like da 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 da. I'm sounding crazy. I hope someone understands what I'm saying. Like the cadence and the flow of the sentences, I want it to be varied and not just like sound monotonous and like repetitive. So, you guys are probably like, oh, no wonder she writes like this because she's psychotic. Anyways. That's my first draft example. That's my process. Yeah. When I first started writing, and I had never finished and completed a book before, I was always so stressed out about like, well, how do I do this? And like, what are the good steps to do? And like, after I'm done with this, what do I do with this? And like, I didn't know how to tackle it. And so I hope this video, if there's any like aspiring writers out there or anyone working through their first draft ever, like I hope this video helps you get some ideas of what your process could be like. I do not suggest just like copying and pasting my process into your flow because like what works for me may not work for you at all. I know I watched so many videos and listened to so many podcasts of people being like, oh, this is so-and-so famous author's process and they do this and this and this. And then like, oh, well, like I just got a book deal and I do this and this and this. It took me so long to find my process and like how many rounds of edits are enough for me to feel comfortable with like putting my book out there and like what do those rounds of edits look like and like all that. It was just like a lot of like learning as I was going. And so I highly recommend that. But if any of these tips do help, please feel free to take them for yourselves. I do think that if you're struggling to like just sit down and write for the first draft, the timer idea of like I have to write for X amount of minutes per day is super helpful. Also word count goals if that's more your vibe, like oh I have to write 500 words a day and then I'm done, or I have to write 1,000 words a day, that's super helpful. So yeah, just find out where you need to start from and just kind of build your process from there. Now, I'll be making another video as I go through my current work in progress and I get out of this first draft stage. I'll be making videos on what my editing process is like because editing is my favorite part of the writing process. I'm getting like stupid giddy thinking about it right now. It's just so much more fun to me because that's when I can take the story and like really build it out and like add all this exciting detail and like make fight scenes more enjoyable and like raise the stakes and like make dialogue really punchy and dramatic and weave in some plot twists. Like Obviously, I'm freaking out over it. I get really excited about editing phase. So I'll make further videos on that. I hope you found this interesting, maybe a little bit helpful. And yeah, that's it for me.